Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 16th IRSA International Conference. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Dian from Badan Kependudukan dan Keluarga Berencana Nasional. I'll be responsible for hosting this presentation today, and I'm glad to welcome Mrs. Atik Suhartini from STIS Statistical Polytechnic, who will present Divability and Multidimensional Poverty in Java 2019. And the second speaker is Mr. Ahmad Kautsar from Universitas Pertamina, who will present Social Exclusion People with Disability. And the third speaker is Mrs. Dinda Monica from Pajajaran University, who will present Does the Smoking Impact on Self-Related Health? Evidence using Instrumental Variables and Order Probit Models. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the first presenter to deliver the study, Mrs. Atik Suhartini. The time is yours.
Thank you. Let me share screen. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Before, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for this occasion. And we, Atik Maratis and my partner Retnaningsih from Polytechnic Statistical STIS Jakarta will present our paper with title Divability and Multidimensional Poverty in Java 2019. Our research started from poverty problem. Poverty is still the major problem in development or country in the world until now. And that's why poverty being the first goal of SDGs with no poverty in 2030. Main principle of SDGs, leave no one behind, means no poverty in all communities group include disabilities. Between disabilities and poverty, there is cause and effect relationship. Based on UU number 8, 2016, disabilities defined as persons who have limitation in physical, mental, emotion, and intellectual. With this limitation, they have obstacles and difficulties to activities normally and vulnerable to be poor. The poor itself faces various limitations in funding their basic needs, especially in nutrition, and will probably create next generation with disabled. Between monetary concept and multidimensional poverty concept, it shows multidimensional poverty not only capture how many people to be poor, but more broader experience by all communities. Monetary poverty rate in Indonesia 2018 based on SMER research, 14.97% experience for disabilities and 9.52% experience for non-disabled. For all disabled, in Indonesia 2019, 19% experience multidimensional poverty and 10.1% experience monetary poverty. The same phenomenon occur in Java Islands. All disabled, 19.4% experience multidimensional poverty and 13.6% experience monetary poverty. This phenomenon show if disabilities more vulnerable to be poor. The study aims First, analyze description of profile multidimensional poverty for disabilities in Java 2019, and analyze variable that influence multidimensional poverty for disabilities in Java 2019. Kursusnas data on March 2019 for disabilities aged 6 until 64 years we use in this research, and descriptive analysis we use to answer the first goal, and binary logistic regression we use to answer the second goal. This is dimension and indicator to determine disabilities who is experience multidimensional poverty or not. There are 3 dimensions. Education consists of 2 indicators: years of schooling and school attendance. Health and employment dimension consists of 3 indicators. Between 2 indicators for age group 14 and 6 until 14 years, and 2 indicators for age group 15 until 64 years. Standard of living dimension consists of 6 indicators. We use the same weight for all dimension and indicator, and disabilities experience multidimensional poverty status if the value of CI more than 0.4. And this is variable we use in logistic regression. Dependent variable is the status multidimensional poverty faced by disabilities with dummy value 1 for they experience multidimensional poverty. Type disability, we use 7 category. With multiple disability, we use dummy value 0. Regional classification with 2 category. Household had education with 3 category, and household had working status with 3 category. First goal, descriptive analysis. Table 1, percentage disabilities who deprived by dimension, categories, and age group in Java 2019. Yellow highlight we use to show disabilities experience deprivation, mostly in indicator. Disabilities age 6 until 14 years, deprived in indicator, mostly in years of schooling, health protection, and asset ownership with more than 50%. Disabilities age 15 until 64% years, dominantly deprived in indicator years of schooling, school attendance, and asset ownership. In general, all disabilities experience multidimensional poverty deprived in indicator years of schooling and school attendance or education dimension, indicator health protection, and asset ownership. This is explanation education dimension. Based on Cahyono and Prabowo Kusumo research, they found disabilities often experience discrimination in fulfill their basic needs in good health services, education services, employment, access to physical and social mobility, recreation, equality in law, and politics. Less teacher with special skill for disabilities, facilities and infrastructure in school that do not fully support it for disabled, limitation of disabilities that require assistance during learning process, limitation of their family in terms of energy, time, as school, be obstacle for disabilities in education. Even all children with disabilities in Indonesia, only 18% had received inclusive education services based on Hafiz. Explanation in health disabilities have high inequality health services because of difficult of transportation, low quality of road, location that hard to reach, no companion to reach health facilities based on ICW research. They, the disabilities, mostly do not have card for disabilities, even not knowing about this card. Poverty is the main cause for disabilities receive less health service based on Cahyono. Poor condition have limited ability to fulfill their basic needs, especially in nutrition during fetal and child development. It will increase in creation next generation with less nutrition and disabilities. In addition, lack of information access and their parents' knowledge on basic right of disabilities, lack of infrastructure also hinder them to fulfill their health service. Asset ownership. Disabilities had to get more assets for disabilities such as proper housing and etc. because of two reasons. First, physical limitation require more costs to fulfill their basic needs. Consequence of physical limitation is lower productivity compared with non-disabled. These two reasons make disabilities hard to get more assets for them. And this is the profile of disabilities who experience poverty in Java 2019. Type of disability. Highest percentage of disabilities experience multidimensional poverty, first multiple disability, followed by vision, communication, and movement disability. And then for this table of type disability, powerlessness is consequence of disability compared with non-disabled. Multiple disability have more consequence. It means more disabilities, more type of disabilities faced by a person have more consequence to be poor. Disabilities experience multidimensional poverty. Almost 90%, 86.76% live in household with household education maximum at primary school and work in agriculture sector. Low education, identically low productivity. Even they work in non-agriculture sector. This is output of logistic regression. Type of disability. No type of disability significant affect their poor status. No type of disability significant affected multidimensional poor status of the disabled. It's not mean the type of disabilities do not affect multidimensional poverty experienced by them. But all disabilities have risk to be poor. All type of disabilities. There is no difference to risk of the poor due to the different type disabilities. First variable that significant affected multidimensional poverty of disabilities urban rural. Rural area is area with main activity in agriculture and various infrastructure not more complete than urban, based on UU number 6 2016. Agriculture identically low productivity than non-agriculture sector and low income than other sector. Combined with incomplete infrastructure will be an obstacle for the disabled to fulfill their basic needs and more vulnerable to be poor in multidimension. Household head with low education work in agriculture sector and live in rural area all makes the household have low productivity and income. This condition make disabilities who live in have more higher risk to be poor in multidimension. Last variable, disabilities who live in household head with non-working household head or jobless have lower risk to be poor in multidimension. It is interesting result, jobless household head affected make the disabilities have lower risk. Household head with non-working, usually they have more asset and rich old and they older than with job. Besides that, household head with jobless have more time to assist the disabled who live in daily activities. Naturally, disabilities need assistance in daily activities. This condition decrease the disabled to be poor in multi-dimension. Maybe not in monetary, but in multi-dimension, their risk lower. Conclusion for all this, for all result, disabilities who experience multidimensional poverty in Java 2019 mostly in indicator education, health insurance, and asset ownership. They dominance by multiple disabilities, followed by communication, vision, and movement disabilities, living in household with household education, maximum elementary school, and working in non-agriculture sector. Household head with education maximum primary school will have low productivity. Moreover, the household head who work in agriculture sector and live in rural will increase the disabled who live in to be poor in multi-dimension. While household head non-working or jobless have more time to assist the disabled who live in indirect activities to decrease the risk to be poor in multi-dimension. Suggestion based on this conclusion, the government support for disabilities in Java to fulfill basic needs must be increased according to two types of disabilities, such as education, infrastructure that support disability, especially in rural area, increasing provision of equipment assistance for disabilities according to their type, who living in household with also that education maximum elementary school and working in agriculture sector. Disabilities research in smaller area and based on type of disabilities and needs to be done because it can be useful information for multi-agent policy. Thank you for the occasion. Thank you for moderator.
Thank you, Mrs. Atik Maratu Suhartini, for your informative and interesting talking about disability issue in Indonesia. Now is a comment and question session. If you have any comment or questions for Mrs. Atik studies, please raise your hand or write down in the chat column. Let me see. Okay. Okay, because I think there is not yet the questions. I will turn to the second speaker. Probably your question will be at the end of the session, Mrs. Atik. So let's get started for the second presenter. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ahmad Kautsar as the presenter for the second session. I will turn the session over to Mr. Ahmad to begin. The time is yours. Please, Mr.
Okay.
Ahmad.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Okay, can you see the materials?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. So I can share our research. This is our research about social exclusion. And our team members are me, Ahmad Kautsar, Ita, Muhammad Nur Hadi, Grace, Niputumia, Anissa Citra, and Muhammad Ichlas. I want to permission to the moderator that maybe I will divide into three presenters because in this room we have Grace and Nisa, so I will divide it into three presenters. And the first presenters will be explained by Grace, background and objectivity. This is our contents, and literature will be explained by Nisa, and I will explain about method and until conclusion. So maybe Grace, can you explain for the background?
Okay, thank you, sir. Sometimes there is a discrimination for individuals with disabilities. As we know that there is a data from World Health Organization, there are individuals with disabilities between 2 until 4 people out of 100 people. And the increasing number of Indonesian population every year have an impact on increasing individuals with disabilities. And there is a lot of factors can cause disabilities, such as accident or natural disaster or nutrition while in the womb. And based on data published by the Ministry of Health, the highest proportion of children with disabilities between 15 to 17 years with male sex being higher than female and urban areas still dominate compared to rural area, and the majority of people with disabilities do not have job. In there, we know that persons with disabilities being jobless, creating a vicious cycle in which individuals with disabilities get imprisoned in poverty. And people who are disabled are unable to fully participate in several activities like attending school, having a job, raising a family, or participating in local governance, especially for children, because person with disabilities get some barriers, such as find a job, education, access for health. And for children spend a half of their day at the school, where at the school they can study or develop connection and peer networks. Education is very important for children, even though these children have limitation or disabilities. And because of that, people with disabilities will live in below standard of living because they are difficult to find a good job, education, and health also. So next, we make a purpose or become our objectivity of this research is to analyze the probability can impact increasing school participation. And next, we'll present it by Anissa.
Okay, so next we talk about the literature that we use. Based on data provided by World Health Organization, There are individuals with disabilities between 2 until 4 people out of 100 people. And then next. Okay, basically, our research is supported by several literature. The first there is from Ministry of Health 2019, which result that the highest proportion of children with disabilities between 15 to 17 years, with male sex being higher than female. And urban areas still dominate compared to rural areas. And the majority of people with disabilities do not have jobs. And second, we take from Afan and Lopez 2012, which result that education is very important for children, even though these children have limitations. Where these children have limitations to get these opportunities. And the last, there is Lamishan and Kawakatsu 2015, which result that investing in education for people with disabilities is necessary to boost their involvement in the job market. Okay, next we will explain by Mr. Ahmad.
Okay. This is the method. The method we use logit model because our dependent variable is binary variable, or dummy, 1 and 0. And the function for school participation depends on that disable, our objective, main objective, and gender, urban, expenditure, and subsidy. Subsidy, it means for education, or we call it Smart Indonesian Program, or PIP, Program Indonesia Pintar. The logit model use is to evaluate the likelihood of occurrence occurring when the marginal impact is taken into consideration. And how to interpret, we use marginal effect. Marginal effect is easily how to interpretation. So the unit of marginal effect is percentage elasticities. And okay, this is the description, monthly total expenditure, the unit for expenditure. This is our result. We divide it by 3 categories because our focus on PIP, Program Indonesia Pintar. Program Indonesia Pintar for poor household and who has children between 5 until 21 years old, because our objective until secondary school. So we make a category maximum of age around 18 years old. And as we know, you can see the result, the school participation between all age 5 until 18 years old for disabled people or disabled persons get lower probability to school participation, around 13%. And relate to age between 5 and 12 years old, and also 13 until 18 years old, it's inline, negative impact, or get lower probability than non-disabled people. How about the gender? And also the gender, male is get lower probability than female. And then urban, yeah, as we know, in urban areas, a lot of school, and then a lot of people, a lot of children will participate in school, and positive impact. How about like expenditure? Expenditure monthly, as we know in economics, where income relate to expenditure. Okay, when you get higher income, you will spending more money. So this is positive impact in 3 categories, around 3% until 5%. And how about interaction dummy, disabled program Indonesia Pintar, who when the people or individual, when the children or individuals get the subsidy from government, it will boost, the result will boost to school participation more than 20%. So this is a program Indonesia Pintar, its impact for, especially for disabled people, disabled person. And what we are conclude from this result, individuals with limited education maybe become or go to the or still in poverty trap, especially for disabilities. As we know, this, based on data, a lot of disabilities people in poor living or below standard living. How about average level education, average level education for disabilities, elementary school or not school. Yeah, based on the data from Susenas or Infodatin Kementerian Kesehatan. Average in elementary school or no school. And it will impact, as we know, education is one of the solution that people can out from the vicious cycle. Vicious cycle is poor education and health. And when the government use the PIP program Indonesia Pintar, it is one of the solution, especially for disabilities who live in poor or below standard living. And we suggest that government must strengthen and extend for smart Indonesia program or program Indonesia Pintar. Thank you. I think that's enough for our presentation. Thank you for the opportunities. If any question, you can talk to our team. Thank you for the moderator.
Oh, thank you. It's a very good work between the three of you. Now is a question and answer session. Is there any questions for the team of Mr. Ahmad Kautsar and Mrs. Ani Safitri and Mrs. Grace Wulandari? If you have any question, please raise your hand or write down in the chat column below. Oh. No response. Okay, just wait for a while. Probably just let the participant to think, and let's get to the third presenter. Let's continue to the third presenter. It's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Dinda Monica as the presenter for the third session. She will present about the smoking impact on self-related to health, evidence using instrumental variables and as order prohibited models. I will now turn the session over to Mrs. Dinda Monica to begin. The time is yours. Do you need any help, Mrs. Dinda?
For student assistant can present my presentations, please?
Yes, I'm on my way. Please wait a second.
Thank you, Mbak Boni.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, good afternoon to all participants. I'm Dinda Monica from Pajajaran University. Today I will present my research entitled Does the Smoking Expenditure Impact on Self-Made Health? Evidence Using Parametric Regressions Model. Okay, next. This is the outline of my presentations. First, I will convey the background and literature study. Then I will convey the methodology and result analysis. And finally, I will convey the conclusions of this research. Okay, next. Next. First, for background. Smoking is one of the biggest causes of death in the world. The World Health Organization states that smoking kills more than 8 million people every year. of which more than 7 million or 80% people are active smokers and 1.2 million other or 15% are passive smokers. And we know that mortality causes great economic burdens and large productivity loss. Based on Southeast Asia Tobacco Control Alliance report that in 2019, the number of smokers in Indonesia is 65.19%. It places Indonesia as the country with the highest number of smokers in Southeast Asia. As for self-read health, which is generally measured through surveys where respondents assess aspects of their own health condition, self-read health is a simple and easy measure of general health. Initially, it was used to replace clinical judgment in research or survey. National surveys such as National Health Interview Surveys, routine report response to self-read health questions such as, in general, how would you rate your health? Currently, self-read health has been identified as an important health indicator associated with various outcomes including well-being, utilizations of health service, and mortality. Self-read health assessment surveys are on the rise and are widely used in clinical studies and population-based research. In particular, there is growing support for the increased use of patient-report outcomes, such as self-read health in healthcare resources allocations decision. This study aims to analyze the impact of smoking and tobacco habits on self-read health. So far, the habit of consuming cigarettes is considered not too influential in the assessment of health by oneself. And this is important because self-read health and the habit of consuming cigarettes and tobacco affect the cost of health costs. This is the reason the author chose to research, does the smoking expenditure impact on self-read health evidence using probit regression model. Okay, next. Cigarettes provide a very large health expenditure burden, namely almost 6% of global health expenditure, or 467 billion US dollar spent on cigarette health expenditure. Smoking can cause various diseases to the body's organs, both physically and psychological. The addictive substance produced from cigarette is result of nicotine molecules reaching the brain in less than 10 minutes. World Health Organizations recommend efforts to control cigarette consumptions because the impact of exposure to smoke from burning cigarettes can cause side effects on health, not only for active smokers, but also for passive smokers. Smoking is a major cause of stroke and vascular disorder. And for self-read health is a simple measure to assess one's general health. This is a valid and reliable measure among those without cognitive impairment. Self-read health is commonly used in psychological research, clinical setting, and in survey of the general population. National surveys such as the National Health Interview Survey, routine report on association response to self-read health questions, such as, in general, how would you rate your health? Then the response to the questions were very good, good, medium, bad, or very bad. Early studies used self-read health to assess the relationship between self-read health and socio-demographic, physical health, and psychosocial variables. The use of self-read health further analyzed the relationship between health construct, socio-demographic, psycho, and psychosocial variables, attempting to explain health and illness behavior and medical examinations by physicians or population health. The independent effect of self-read health on mortality has been demonstrated in various studies and diverse populations have a significant impact. Basically, self-assessed health is most closely related to the physical symptoms experienced. Few studies to that have examined change in self-read health over time, but few have assessed sociodemographic, psychosocial, and health behaviors and equal intervals. Despite his seemingly superficial character, self-rated health has proven to be an unusually strong predictor of death. A recent analysis found those who reported poor health had a twofold higher risk of death compared to those who reported very good health. In addition, there is a complex relationship between self-read health and health-related behaviors. Health-related behaviors included in self-read health studies often include smoking status, assessment of diet, physical activity, body mass index, or the presence of obesity and drinking habits. Okay, next. Next. Okay, next I will convey the methodology. Next. In this study, the author used survey data, Survei Sosial Ekonomi Nasional or SUSENAS 2019. SUSENAS is an annual survey conducted by the Badan Pusat Statistik, which aims to collect data on the socio-economic conditions of the community such as education, health, fertility, family planning, economics, employment, and housing. In SUSENAS, data on cigarette and tobacco consumption expenditures are available, as well as data on self-assessed health conditions, which are represented by complaints filed by respondents. In addition, there are other socioeconomic variables used in this study. Next. This study used cigarette and tobacco expenditure variables to represent smoking habits. Furthermore, cigarette and tobacco consumption expenditures are estimated to see their effect on self-read health as the dependent variable. The independent variable used in this study is in addition to the expenditure variable for cigarette and tobacco consumptions, while the covariate variables use a control variables regarding the characteristic of the individuals in the study. The author used several covariate variables in this study. This variable consists of age, education, location of residence, and consumption expenditure. Age variable is entered as a continuous variable. The education variable is the respondent highest education. The location variable is entered as dummy variable to indicate whether the respondent lives in a rural area represented 1 and in urban area that represented 0. The consumption expenditure variable is a continuous variable in logarithmic from which represent that respondent monthly consumption expenditure. Okay, next. This study process using the probate regulation method. The probate method was chosen because the authors used a health assessment in which respondents were asked to assess whether their health was good or bad, experiencing complaints or not. And the data used was random sampling obtained from the 2019 National Socioeconomic Survey or SUSENAS. The samples normally distributed. Therefore, the authors used the probate regulation method for this study. The authors used the stat applications in performing regulation analysis. The author used self-read health as a variable that has two categories, 0 namely complaints or poor health, and 1 for no complaints or good health conditions. The categories respondent used to answer the questions. In general, how would you rate your health? Do you have complaints such as feeling unwell, experiencing symptoms of cough, fever, or runny nose, and etc.? Meanwhile, the independent variable consists of cigarette and tobacco expenditure variables. and covariate variables. The purpose of this study was to examine the habit of consuming cigarettes and tobacco on self-read health. In addition, this study also intends to see how the influence of socioeconomic variables and habit effects their self-assessment of health. Next. Okay, so this is model used in the study and the change in marginal effect on the independent variables. Next. Okay, next I will convey the result analysis. First is descriptive statistics. This table shows summary statistics of each variable used in the analysis. From all observation, it was found that as many 70.86% of respondents experienced a poor assessment of their own health, which was represented by experiencing complaints with an average age of 33 years. In addition, most of the respondents live in urban areas. Then as many as 26.94% of respondents didn't graduate from elementary school, and 25.74% of respondents had the highest education in elementary school. 18.19% of respondents had the highest education in junior high school. 21.25% of respondents had the higher education in senior high school, and 7.89% had a higher education. Next. Okay, next, this table shows the regressions result from STIS data, where the model is result of the marginal effect of the overall regression result. In interpreting the regressions result, the assumptions of ceteris paribus is used, where other things are considered constant. First, the probability of people who have a habit of consuming cigarette and tobacco, which is represented by cigarette spending and tobacco consumptions, have complaints about illness or have a poor health assessment that is self-read health by an average 7.86%, higher than people who don't have a smoking habit. People who have a habit consuming cigarette and tobacco have a positive and significant relationship with poor health assessment and have disease complaints. Next, for the age variable, explains that with a significance level 1%, with increasing age, the probability of a person having a poor self-assessment of health will be lower and average by 0.41%. This is because the older person gets, the more complaints of illness are felt due to reduced stamina and body conditions. The same result also occur when respondents live in urban areas, where the probability of someone living in urban area has a lower complaint or assessment by an average 2.5% compared to people living in rural areas. This is because if someone lives in the city, access to health can be easily obtained. Health facilities as well as facilities that support persons to live a healthy life can also be easily found in urban areas. Then, the highest level of education taken by a person has a positive relationship with self-health assessment or self-read health. With a significance level 1%, the probability that person with 1 year of education is higher than another individual has a poor health rating, which is read by himself as an average of 0.87%. The higher a person's education make him more pays to attention his health. So he will judge his health is getting worse or have complaints of disease as long as he cannot apply a healthy lifestyle. Then the amount of individual expenditure on food consumption is positively and significantly associated with poor self-health assessment, with a significance level 1%. As consumption expenditure increases, the probability of person having a complaint or assessing a poor health conditions increases by an average 3.36%. This can happen if consumptions issued by the individual is not for consuming healthy food. Meanwhile, the amount of individual spending on non-food consumptions, including school fees, health costs, housing costs, was positively and significantly associated with poor self-health assessment or self-read health, with a significance level 1%. As consumption expenditure increases, the probability of a person having a complaint or assessing a poor health conditions increases by an average 23.9%. This positive and significant relationship is due to the fact that individuals spend more on other secondary costs, such as school fees, the cost of buying clothes, and the cost household needs than on health costs. Okay, next. All right. Finally, I will convey the conclusions of this research. By using control variables such as the age, the locations of the residents, the education level, consumption expenditures for food and non-food expenditures, including health costs, school fees, cost of buying clothes, and secondary needs and housing costs, it was found that smoking habits represented by individual smoking expenditure had a positive and significant influence on a self-rate health. This shows that people who have a habit of consuming cigarettes and tobacco have a probability of having complaints of an illness or assessing their health as well. Next. Okay. Thank you. So that's all my presentations. I'm sorry for all my mistakes.
Thank you, Mrs. Dinda, for the outstanding presentation. Now is question and answer questions, because from the first, the second, and the third question speakers, if there is any questions or comment about the topic that increased by Mrs. Atik and Mr. Ahmad and Mrs. Dinda, I would like to welcome all the participants to contribute for the discussion of this meeting. You can raise your hand or chat in the column chat below. I will check in the, okay. I think all clear? No questions?
Can I ask for other presenter?
Oh, you want to ask Mrs. Atik?
Yeah.
Okay, please. Thank you, Ms. Atik.
Thank you for the time. I have two questions for the second presenter. First, can you tell me what is the reason for dividing disabilities into two age groups? And the second question, the research show that average education of disabilities is primary school and PIP Indonesia Merdeka, Kampus Merdeka, Pendidikan Merdeka as the solution. What do you think with the bigger expenditure for disabilities compared with not disabled? In addition, disabilities have many limitations physically. They always face discrimination in their daily activity. And all conditions increase the obstacle to improve their school participation. Based on their result, is it only pendidikan merdeka as the solution? That is the second question. And question for third presenter. Still confused with the conclusion. Smoking habits has positive influence on self-rate health. Dependent variable you use, categorical variable with category complaint or poor health with dummy 0 and no complaint or good health. From the results, gimana? Can you explain why you conclude that smoking habits has positive influence on self-rate health? Thank you.
Okay, probably the first question, Mr. Ahmad. Please, Mr. Ahmad.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I cannot hear clearly about the question number 1, but I will answer the second question first. So I'm agreed that with your sentence, a lot of obstacle for disability person than the non-disabled. The reason why I choose between 5 until 18 years old, so our focus on until secondary school, not focus in until university or in you said Campus Merdeka. As I know that because because just focus with until secondary school, because in Indonesia, based on data, the maximum or the higher degree from disabled is around elementary school. So one of the solution is program Indonesia Pintar, and it's not enough just program Indonesia Pintar, but also the government should improve access for especially for disabled school for disabled person. Sorry, and the government has undang-undang. I forgot undang-undang number 8 or is 2016 that all people between disabled and non-disabled can access the education, but they implement it in education or school. Maybe only a few school give the facilitation for disabled people. Then this is our challenges, our homework for the government, how to improve the school and all people or all person between disabled or disabled get the facilitation. For example, in our university, maybe some university give especially for disabled, yeah, some campus I know in our campus, yeah, if you want to go to the university, go just apply it, and then but the facility may be only limitation facilitation such as lift for disabled we don't have in campus, or maybe that's our challenges for our school, why a lot of obstacles. So this is our second homework after boost with scholarship, but also the government must improve the facilitation for disabled people, such as public facility. For example, for disability person wants to go to somewhere with public transportation, and it's very limitation. So this is our homework, our government homework to finish inclusive program. I think that that's my opinion. And I'm sorry, you can repeat about the question number 1.
What is the reason for dividing disabilities into 2 age groups?
Okay, so I want to know about where I divided into 2 groups, 5 until 13 and 13 until 18. So I just want to know maybe the probability between 5 until 13 higher than 13 until 18. So based on the result, yeah, we can compare in the general the probability between two categories. Yeah, we know that the sign is in line, yeah, between two categories, but maybe PIP, program Indonesia Pintar, higher than or impact higher than between 5 until 12 years old than 13 until 18 years. When we know that all the categories, yeah, all positive impact, but the higher impact in the second category between 5 until 12 years. So maybe the government should focus on the age between 5 until 12 years old. Yeah, as we know that a lot of people with disable graduate until elementary school. So PIP impact higher than in the third category between 13 and 18. I just want to know the point of impact or the result of the impact.
Can I respond?
Okay.
Moderator? Maybe I'm agree with your explanation. PIP, Indonesia Pintar, is the solution. But I see many information that you can give a recommendation from your result, etc. Urban, gender disabled, not only PIP, but maybe you focusing on policy of PIP. And for disabilities, maybe I can give suggestion for you. Average level education for disabilities in your research is primary school, and age 12 years, usually in last year in primary school. Maybe you can use that reason to divide this group into two age group.
Okay. Thank you for suggestion. I will prepare our paper for the future, for the further research. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to ask to Dinda. Can I ask, moderator?
Yeah, but
okay.
First, the second question that raised by Mrs. Atik before to Budinda, is it?
Okay. For categorical of my dependent variable is in summary statistic, they state 0 for have no complaints or self-help assessment is good, and 1 for have complaints or judge their own health as bad. So smoking habits have a positive impact to self-help because people who smoke generally feel their body conditions. It is possible to experience disease caused by smoking, so they judge their health as worse or bad. So when they are smoking, they are think or state their self-health is bad.
Is it mean smoking habit make the smoker not more careful about their health?
Yes. So smoking habits make smoker not care, and when he state self-health is bad because she feeling bad in body conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now is to Mr. Ahmad. Please make it sharp because we are run of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Andida, you are interesting paper. So I know about Estro. Estro is my best friend, and here are the expertise in smoking. So the first question is, I want to know about the instrument for what kind of the variable that you will input to the IV. And the second is, what's your limitation from your research? And you can give the suggestion for the next research. What's your delimitation from your research? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mbak Dinda, please make it short.
Okay, I will answer for limitations variables. Limitations variables in this research. To be honest, my limitations variables include self-rate health and tobacco consumptions and socio-demographic. Nah, okay, wait a minute. I chose self-rate health variables because the variable represented how a person or individual assess their own health. I choose self-rate health variables because these variables represent how a person or individual assess their own health, considering that each health expenditure or health cost is incurred by the individual, and of course, how the individual views his health will affect the health costs that will be incurred. Furthermore, I choose the smoking expenditure variable because it represents how a person's habit of consuming cigarettes. The more person spends on cigarettes, the more likely he or she has a higher smoking habit than person. I choose other socioeconomic variables such as age, place of residence, and education, because these socioeconomic variables affect how a person evaluates his health and influence a person's habit of smoking. So that's my limitations. Next, I choose consumption expenditure for food because of how individual consumption will affect their lifestyle and overall life. So my limitation is habit and socio-demographic variables and consuming cigarette and also self-rate health. But maybe for recommendations or suggestions for next research. Yes. Maybe suggestions or recommendations for next research, and I will put many variable in socio-demographic. Okay, because I feel I not included variable marital status and gender. So that is my suggestions for next research.
Okay, thank you. Or maybe you can use more detail about the disease, because
Yes,
just like
insurance maybe.
Yes.
Thanks for
Okay,
suggestions and recommendations, Ahmad.
Okay, applause for Mrs. Dinda, Mr. Ahmad, and Mrs. Atik and their college. Thank you all. To conclude the session, because we are running out of the time, I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi's statement that health is the real wealth, not pieces of gold and silver. So let's keep positive and healthy during this hard time period. Okay, thank you again, all speakers, participants, and Mbak Uning for joining this session and helping this session as well, and for the great presentation. It was a pleasure to have you with us. We hope you have learned and enjoyed the 16th IRSA conference, and see you again in the other session of the conference. See you. Thank you. Keep healthy.